You are what you eat, Corey. You know about that? Interesting. Very interesting. Levitan, how you doing today?
I'm
What's going?
trying
Are
to
you tired?
contact our. I'm trying to contact our guest.
What happened?
What happened? He's not here.
What do you mean? It's a big show today.
It's a big show.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Peter Yarrow, we're ready for you.
Hold on. Hold
sir.
on. This is what you're doing right now.
Yes.
You upset Miranda right now. Look at her over here.
He's 82. He might not be savvy tech wise. This is what I was afraid of. This is what I was afraid of. Damn it, I don't have his phone number. Maybe he overslept.
What? What do you mean you don't have the phone number?
I don't have his phone number. I just have his email. I've been talking via email.
Hold on. You booked a guest, right?
Mm.
This is your thing, right?
It's my thing.
How am I going to explain this? A serious question. How am I going to explain this to Debbie Smith, what you're doing today to the show?
That's good.
It's coffee talk with the Tika. Nothing rhymes with that but chicken tikka. We name drop here with Stephen and all his friends.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Miranda was here. She's not here. She'll find her way here. Her power went out, everybody, but she'll be back. Everybody, welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for spending your morning, January 26th, 2021, with Corey and friends. We have a great guest today. Corey's very stressed out about it, but Corey, don't worry. Don't worry. Ladies and gentlemen, first of all,
is he here?
let me introduce the co-host. Look at this right here. Corey Levitan, Circus Magazine in the house. Corey, you're looking marvelous as always. As always. We have a great guest today, which I'm excited about.
Do we really have him?
Yes. Oh, yeah. I'm going to cut to the chase.
Oh, great.
Yeah. You know what? You guys remember? Big hit for me when I was a little kid was Puff the Magic Dragon. It was like a huge thing for me as a little kid. But there's a lot more. There's a great obscure movie, You Are What You Eat, that I want to know about. From the legendary Peter, Paul, and Mary. Corey, you take it over right here.
Well, Peter Yarrow was one of the founders of what became the folk rock movement. He was before Dylan. He was there, and he's still around. He's still doing activism and music. He's still playing around, and I'm just shocked that he would. No, I'm not, because I had a good interview with him a couple of years ago.
Oh wait, he knows you actually.
Well, not just from an interview. He never saw my face or anything. He's a phoner because he lives in Manhattan. But a pleasure to have him here. Peter Yarrow.
Peter Yarrow is in the house. Let's bring him up here. Peter, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm good, but it's COVID time, and there were some workers here, and I think they've left, so I can go into my other location. Well, I can do it from here, even though it's not where I ordinarily do it. But it was they had to clean the chimney. It's great.
It's you know what, Peter? If you want to get comfortable, I could put you backstage and find your happy spot, and then I'll bring you back in. It's okay. I want you.
Let's just talk and then I'll take a break.
Okay. Well, let's yenta it together.
Did you get your shot, Peter? Did you get your shot yet?
No, I didn't, but I'm hoping to. I was just working on that actually earlier today. There's a problem in New York. They've run out of shots. Tony, I can go back in? Yeah. Okay. Put me in the
okay, I'll put you backstage in the green room. We'll bring you back.
In the refrigerator for just
okay. Okay, you got it, Peter. He's a very nice guy. Corey, you did good again, and he's a nice guy. I could tell right away. But everybody, in the meantime, the beautiful Miranda is here. Miranda, welcome to the show. Looking pretty as ever.
Hi, I'm in the dark. Can you hear me?
Yeah, hold your phone sideways, dude. Let's try to sideways. Let's get the full angle of you. There's the Miranda. I know.
Oh,
there she is. Oh, I like
Yeah,
her
I
like
feel
that.
like intimate.
Ooh, yeah, Corey, yeah,
I'm
Miranda.
not
All right,
here.
so Miranda, very good to see you, but your power went out. Thanks for
So
being
good to
here.
be here. Yeah, it's gone out a couple times this morning and it's back again. Holy fuck, this thing. Sorry.
Oh, watch the language. We got a gentleman here. That's it. No
Yeah,
cursing here
thank
today.
you. Thank you
That's
very much,
it.
Corey.
That's it. We got a watch. We got the legend, Peter Yarrow's here from Peter, Paul, and Mary. There he is on stage with. That's a great guitar right there. A lot of good rock and roll stories we got.
Oh, yeah.
There's a
I'm
movie
excited.
here, the Tiny Tim that he did, Frank Zappa, a whole bunch of good. The guys from the band are in that. It's an obscure movie about the flower power movement from all the way Los Angeles, San Francisco. Corey,
Good score. I never even knew about that movie.
there's Peter over here with the Beatles. There's a couple things we'll tap on over here
Oh.
with Ed Sullivan. Look at that, huh? That's pretty big. Corey Levitan, you're the reporter. Talk to us a little bit about. Tell the kids in the audience a little bit about Peter.
Well, as I was saying last night, a lot of what we now refer to as hippies, although they didn't necessarily call themselves that at the time, flower children they liked. A lot of them in the 70s and 80s, definitely by the 80s, they bought BMWs and they said, F you, I'm making as much money as I can. So they joined the system that they were railing against in their 20s. Peter was not one of those people. In fact, Peter's activism has even gotten more intense. He is always a part of these benefits and performing for causes that are very in line with the hippie aesthetic. He shows up. He'll show up like he did it at this party that I saw him at. And he just showed up with his guitar and played like a few songs and raised a lot of money. And so that's what he does now. And I think it's just awesome that he's still from his the idealism that he had in 1961, which is why the group picked up their guitars and started strumming and singing.
Yeah.
He's still the same at 80. I want to say 81. He might be 82 by now.
No, there's some good stuff here. Mitch Weissman over here. He's right there. Mitch, Peter, Paul, and Mary were around us when we were doing the Beatlemania days. Very nice people. Yeah, where we got the wood.
I have something else that I forgot about him. That you're gonna freak out about. Remember Martin Luther?
Let's bring him up. I think he's all ready for us. Alrighty, okay. Peter's back in broadcast right now, ladies and gentlemen. The wonderful Peter Yarrow. Peter, welcome.
There we go.
This is better. Let me just take care of these.
You're fine. Stop it, Peter.
No. I'm telling you, these lights get me crazy if they're. Now we're talking.
Now,
all right.
Yeah, Peter. See, Peter, we look like we went to the same schools together. Look, I'm Stefan. Nice to meet you, Peter. You look how great you look. Look, and there's Corey Levitan.
Yes, it's a very serious mishpacha here.
It is. Huh? You have a lot going on there. Well, I'm glad you're comfortable now. And good morning, good afternoon. Thank you for spending your day with us.
Well, I'm listening to the two of you. Where are you located?
Well, Corey's in California. I'm in Washington, but originally we're both New Yorkers.
You're in the state of Washington, or what?
Yeah.
Oh, really? Yeah, I can hear in your speech that you have the familiar ring of somebody who has grown up in New York.
Really?
Canarsie.
You must be really good at accents because I can't pick that up at all.
Peter, I'm actually from Canarsie, Brooklyn.
Oh my God, you are a New Yorker.
You can't get more New Yorker than that.
You don't get no more New York than that.
No, where did you grow up, Peter?
Manhattan.
Okay, Manhattan.
Where'd you go to high school? That's what we talk about. People from New York don't want to know where you went to college. Want to know where you go.
South Shore High School. That was it. That's what they want to know of it. In Manhattan's. You know what? Corey and I both were living in Manhattan at one time, and then we left the city about 91, 92. But Peter, you got what's it to say? You're here. You're a legend.
High school.
I'm sorry.
Where did Corey go to high school?
Oceanside, Long Island.
Oh, you are New Yorkers. I went to one of the famed schools, the High School of Music and Art.
Performing Arts. Wow, cool.
Well, they had Performing Arts and the High School of Music and Art, M&A we called it. And it was 4 glorious years. And my mother was a school teacher. So, and she was bringing up as a single mom, 2 kids. So we didn't have, you know, 2 nickels to rub together. But so I went to a public school, and I applied. I wanted to make sure I got into one of the schools that was really good, you know. So, and the top school in New York at the time, academically, was Bronx Science. And we're talking about the year was 1951 when I went to high school. So, the second was Stuyvesant. Now Stuyvesant is number 1. So
Stuyvesant, yeah.
I took the test for Stuyvesant and music and art, and I got in, and I chose music and art, and it was the best choice I ever made. Everything that I am doing these days and from that period of time emanated from the kind of spirit that is the antithesis of what has happened to this country most dramatically in the past 4 years.
Peter, I have to play a little Jewish geography with you because I just realized something. You're my dad's age, and my dad went to Stuyvesant. Did you know a guy named Maish Levitan by any chance?
No, I went to music and art.
Oh, there we go.
Yes, but Maish and I used to hang out in the village. I'm kidding you.
I
You
wanted
used to get hookers together.
How old is your dad?
83.
I'm 82. Well, tell him he's too old for me to hang out.
He's too old. Peter, I want to know. So, in high school, what were you listening to? The music that you were getting into as a kid?
Well, you know, you spoke about. I was listening to you schmooze a little bit while I was moving to the place where I can talk to you now. You referred to something in a way that's, you know, has to be commented. You talked about folk rock. There was no folk rock at the time.
Yeah.
At the time that Peter, Paul, and Mary started, which was with the era of Joan Baez, Peter, Paul, Mary, Bob Dylan, Judy Collins, Richie Havens, etc. There was folk music, but there wasn't rock and roll. It existed, but it was of the sort that you would hear it with, Elvis Presley.
Mm-hmm.
Something, you know, it just, there was doo-wop music, and then there was rock and roll. And rock and roll was Bill Haley. It was, you know, it didn't, the term folk rock emerged after folk music began to merge with rock and roll music. And what happened was that an interesting story. A lot of it had to do with the Beatles. Before the Beatles, folk music was really the dominant music on the charts. And it also was very much the heart center of America, in the sense that it reflected the enormously powerful movements that were taking place at the time. For instance, the civil rights movement.
Mm-hmm.
When Peter, Paul, and Mary sang at the March on Washington in 1963, where Martin Luther King delivered his I Have a Dream speech. And there we sang Blowing in the Wind and If I Had a Hammer. And there were 250,000 people there. And it was an event that really resonated all the way till our present moment.
Did you get, I'm sorry to cut you off, but did you get anything from seeing that speech in person that everybody else who had to watch it on TV didn't get?
Being there with 250,000 people and singing to people. And when he was giving that speech, Mary took my hand in hers and she said, "You know, Peter, we are watching history being made." And we all knew it. And what happened there was that the people who left there, first of all, when we went there, we didn't know whether there was going to be violence or, I mean, but it turned out that it was absolutely just the personification of hope and determination and love and humanity. It was extraordinary. But the people had left there, and it really relates to what I really want to talk about, which is what's going on today, is we left there with a sense of determination that we were bound to these people that with whom we were marching and to whom we were singing. We were bound in such a way that for our entire careers, there was a sense of very clear mission. Now, this wasn't the only influence, but it was perhaps the most important moment in terms of our performing. And at the time, there were no rock and roll or folk rock. There was Mahalia Jackson and Bob Dylan and Joan Baez and Peter, Paul and Mary. And that was about it. And the songs that we sang, the first one that we sang was If I Had a Hammer. And that had been a hit about a year and a half prior to the gathering. And Blowing in the Wind was the first song that was introduced Bob Dylan to the American public. At the time, in the summer, actually, Bob Dylan had come to Woodstock to live with me in my mother's little cabin with Susie Rotolo, his girlfriend. And Susie was a painter, and I was a painter from the High School of Music and Art. And we'd go to Art Students League, and he would write songs, and we'd come home with our paintings, or if we brought something home, and he would have written this, that only a pawn in the game, or High Rain's Gonna Fall. And it was a time, you may have heard a song called Bob Dylan's Dream, which very much reflected. They said, by the old wood stove where our hats were hung, our tales were told and our songs were sung, we longed for nothing and were satisfied, laughing and joking about the world outside. And then he says, I wish in vain that we could sit simply in that room once again. $1,000, I think it was then $100, but at the drop of a hat, I'd give it all gladly if our lives could be like that. Well, that very summer in August, we had recorded his song, Blowing in the Wind. At that time, he was virtually unknown. And we sang it at the March on Washington. And the week prior to us singing it, it hit the top of the charts as far as we went, which was number 2. And it was a huge hit. And it was very different because the music that was being played prior to folk music being played was all about, teenage angst and falling in love and stuff, as you would expect, very much like the music of today to a large degree in the pop music world. But in our case, it was a huge shift in the music because this music became part of the politicization of America, part of America's commitment to the civil rights movement and then the anti-war movement, which emerged right out of it, which is the anti-Vietnamese movement. And this work that we were committed to then not only lasted all the time from that era in 1963. We had met in December of 1960. So here, and I was out of college I graduated in 59. So in 63, I was 4 years out of college. I was 24 years old. Mm-hmm. So, Noel, Paul Stuckey was 6 months older than I, and Mary Travers was about a year older than Noel. So we were all youngsters. And interestingly enough, if you saw Amanda Gorman, who was the poet,
Yes.
who was 22,
Yeah.
the people who were singing on that stage were 2 years older than that. And Bob Dylan was a year and a half younger than me.
Uh-huh.
And so it was the people who were at the top of the charts at the time were the youth, but it wasn't the entertainment charts. It was the music that was drawing America together in a way that you at your ages would not understand or believe unless you were to take a deep dive into experiencing that time. Now, how could you do that? The best way to do that would be through documentaries, but also through listening to the music. Now, that brings me to what I want to talk about, which is the fact that if we in this era want to reconstruct the humanity in our country, if we want to fill that black hole of lost empathy and compassion, which has, and if we want to substitute the goodwill and the kind of caring and humanity that focused on not on material things and material wealth or unearned fame. I'm not talking about Nobel Prize fame. I'm talking about I've got a lot of money and I'm going to show you how much money I have and I can spend kind of thing, which is ludicrous and misleading because it does not bring you happiness at all. If we want that, we need to, I believe, and not what we need to, it would be a great help if music were to be resurrected in our midst. And what I've been working on, and I sent you, I don't know if you received it, Corey, I sent you some videos and what I've spent the past many months. Miranda, you have the sweetest smile on your face. You must be another darling. These guys are darlings too to me, being an octogenarian. Where are you located, Miranda?
I'm on the central coast of California. I'm in the San Luis Obispo County area.
Really terrific.
Yeah, down by Pismo.
Fantastic. Look at that. You see the era of COVID that has made Zooming so much the only way that we can really contact each other because but it's also allowed people to be close and connected and working together at a distance in very significant ways. But what I wanted to do is I could do it with a screen share, is to show you a video that would be the basis of not recollecting those times alone, but also talking about how that kind of impulse exists today. And it has come into its bloom to a certain degree because of the youth, the real youth, like Greta Thunberg, who was the climate activist from Sweden. Is it Norway or Sweden? Who, because of her, my granddaughter was one of the two leaders to lead the student walkout, at the age of 11. Wow. And they walked out of school and they were told, if you, the rule in New York City public schools was, because this was middle school, if you leave without permission, you are suspended. But the principal privately said, if you get more than 50% of the kids to go with you, we can't suspend you because we'd have to close school. So you haven't walked out of school because, and they got 70% of the kids to walk out of school. Pretty gutsy. And then they went to City Hall. But the other students that emerged really at the forefront, that started something called the March for Our Lives, was it came out of the terrible horrible shooting in Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida. There are 14 students, and that was on Valentine's Day, 2018.
I grew up with both parents of Meadow Pollock, Andrew Pollock, and his wife Shara. They were both in my high school, and I grew up with both of them.
Is that right? Yes. Well, you know then the trauma that they endured. Well, let me tell you what happened. So this will give you a sense. It'll give you a sense of where I'm at and why at my age, rather than looking back at the glory years, I'm in the middle of perhaps the most critical work that I've ever done. I have a good friend, an interesting guy, really, really wonderful, by the name of David Sable. David Sable was until recently the CEO of Young and Rubicam. Young and Rubicam was the ad agency after which the series Mad Men was patterned.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a crazy time, you know, that they personified in that TV series. And it so happened that my best friend, Stephen Feldman, when I went to PS6 in Manhattan, his father was the token Jew at Young and Rubicam, which was the iconic ad agency. It was, you know, like many institutions, like certain law firms or clubs or whatever, you know, Jews were not. Yeah, I'm sorry. You know, that was the era of exclusivity in that regard, and then David Sable, who's the person I'm talking about now, who was CEO and a very dear friend of mine, is an Orthodox Jew. And he was the CEO, not a token Jew, the leader. And the leader of the consortium of ad agencies out of the East Coast. And what he had done, he had put together a time for some of the leadership at the ad agencies in New York to get together with Emma Gonzalez and David Hogue, the leaders from Parkland, who had emerged, these kids from the high school who had convened for all over the country, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of kids, to say you are valuing the access to guns and to military grade weapons like the AR-15 or the AK-47 with which our friends were killed. You are valuing that over the lives of your children. Now at this point, now 230,000 kids have been in schools where there has been a shooting. 230,000 kids living with the trauma that we learned about, that you may have read about last year when it was the 20th anniversary of Columbine. So David Sable comes to me and he says, Peter, what these kids need is they need a song like some of the anthemic kinds of songs that we sang and that I wrote. And he said, I want you and David Brozer, who's a brilliant, brilliant singer-songwriter, actually an Israeli, but he's iconic not only in Israel, but here as well. He's about 20 years younger than I am. He's about 60. We need you to write a song for them. And I said, you know, it doesn't matter if I write the song. We need the kids themselves, the students, to write the songs. And I went down with 12 songwriters, 12 including myself, all of them activists for all these years, meaning that the meaning of their music was to them that it was a force for bringing people together in community and communicating the heart and soul of our hopes and aspirations for the world. And we went down there and we wrote with about 35 students collectively over a 2-day period, we wrote 13 songs. Then it was my feeling that if the United States were to see these songs as videos, they, thank you, Robbie, that you would, they would be moved. It would pierce this insensitivity that was surrounding us, where people were so disoriented they weren't even, it becomes such an alienated culture at that point. Not everybody, of course, but a large portion of them. A culture that I think emerged to a large degree in certain ways because of the absence of the vehicles of affirming this in us. And music is one of them. And my objective with this effort is to bring music into the mainstream once again so that it can have this kind of effect. What I'd like to do, if it's all right with you, is to play a video of one of the songs that the kids wrote. You have to realize when we were with them, and we had one extraordinary songwriter by the name of Keith Sokola, who lives on the reservation. He's Native American, and he is kind of revered in the world of the Peter Gabriels, etc. Because he's absolutely remarkable, and he was the one that kind of precipitated the development of music of the Native Americans, of affirmation of protest and affirmation, and what their convictions were, what they needed to do. And then we had a Black Lives Matter activist who was a singer from St. Louis, and we had two of the peace poets from New York, that a rap group. And so we did all kinds of music and all kinds of idioms, and some of it was very contemporary, and some of it was country-esque, some of it was but this one was an incredible song.
You gonna try and screen share it, Peter? Because
I will.
Okay, because the files that you sent didn't have the actual video. It was just like a screenshot of the video. So if you could share it,
Did you
could try that.
Were you able to look at the videos at all?
I just assumed they were there, and I forwarded them on to Stefan.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
it's actually it's a screenshot when you can't press on it.
No, there is a link that
There's
takes
a link on it. Corey, you didn't.
Well, it's all right. Let me screen share. All right.
Yeah. Let's see this.
Yeah. And then you'll see it afterwards, and then we'll have a discussion that'll be very, very relevant to Danae. It says, Google would like to record this on the computer screen. It's okay.
Okay.
To deny it, but share. All right, here it is. Share your screen. Did you allow me to share my screen?
It's not with the platform we're using. It's not showing anything here. Let's see.
Well, I'm seeing your screen, but you have to allow screen share on your.
I don't have anything. Corey, do you have anything?
No.
Are you on a? You're not on.
We're not on. This is StreamYard. We're not on a Zoom or anything.
Okay.
What's the name of the song?
Well, I'll. It's called "The Children Will Lead the Way," but you don't have it.
Is it on YouTube?
Yes, I will send you a video link. Oh, look at my kitten is there. Hang on.
Hold on. I could do this for you.
Yeah, we can look it up.
Hold on 1 second. I could do this right now. Okay, what is the name of that song again?
I doubt that you have it.
The Children Will Lead the Way.
Will lead the way.
Okay. Let's see if we can find it. If it's on.
Well, while you're doing that, let me find it here, and then I will send you the link.
Okay. That'll be good.
All right.
Corey, put down the scissors.
Yeah, Corey, stop getting nervous, Corey.
I'm nervous.
Corey, in the meantime, while we try to find this, Corey Levitan.
Peter, I think I think COVID, the only good thing about COVID actually is that it put a temporary end to school shootings. When you think about it,
Well, there are other good things that are coming out of it, but all right, here I've got it, and there's a password, and I'm going to send it to you, Corey, right now.
Okay.
Uh,
Sorry
actually,
about Corey, Peter. He's still learning how to find the on button on his computer.
well,
we'll get it together.
he all he knows is the mute button on his computer.
Poor Corey.
Peter, I want to apologize for having technical issues and missing the very beginning of the interview. It's nice to meet you.
Oh, it's nice to meet you and nice to talk to you. All right, now I'm going to take this. Should I send it to you, Corey?
yes, and I'll forward it on.
And then Corey will forward it right to our production team.
Oh, well, what is that? Is that to Miranda or to
I'm
T-Head?
in production.
Stefan's wife is behind the scenes,
Yeah.
working
Well,
all the
what's the
magic.
email to which you want it to go?
Yeah, just send it to me.
To Corey? All right. All right, hang on.
And I would like to ask a question of Peter.
Yes.
We see Peter got all these questions everybody wants to ask him. This is wonderful. Go ahead, Miranda.
When Bob Dylan won the Nobel in Literature for his songwriting, how did you feel about that?
Well, I felt my hands were warm, and I felt joyous, and I had very, very good sensation in my hands. That's how I was feeling. Hang on, I'm kidding you. It's an interesting that you see people on. It's like leading the witness. Hang on, just a second. I want to send this off to you, and now I'm not able to talk and chew gum. The word to open it is Parkland. You will see it in a second. And now, Corey, with the miracles of the internet, it will come to that. Okay. Look, you have to remember that Bob and I were very close at an early age, right? So you have that. And you have to know that, to me, he's a multi-dimensional person. He's not, a picture on a record cover with a meme and a series of songs. He is a faulted, feet of clay person like myself. And in terms of his work, he was a genius, and he is a genius, who completely shifted the way in which people thought about music. And I was going to say this, that it was when the Beatles met Bob Dylan and they were influenced him, that they went from I Want to Hold Your Hand to Rubber Soul. That their entire perspective was altered. There we are with the Beatles and Ed Sullivan in London at the Savoy Hotel.
Well, at the same time, Peter, after they met is when Dylan decided to go electric at the Newport Folk
That's
Festival.
not true. It's not true.
Okay.
He went.
Enlighten me.
Yeah. No. As a matter of fact, if you see the Scorsese film of the double,
Don't look back.
about that, you'll see me on the stage as I'm talking to the audience and asking them to be empathetic to, and the story of how that occurred is been written about many times. But since I was on the board of Newport at the time, and it was I that contacted Joan Baez and Bob Dylan and Paul and Mary and others of that ilk to come. So I was, in a way, the intermediary between Newport and Bob. And during the day, what had happened at that festival, Alan, the folklorist, I'll remember his last name in a second.
Aronowitz?
No, that's the Al Aronowitz, who was a journalist. He was more in the era of
Ginsburg?
the rock. No, Alan. Uh, he's a famous folklorist. He and his Alan Lomax. Alan Lomax had been given the opportunity to program the festival, and he decided that he wanted to do it in such a way that it didn't have the kind of arc that most of these have. You know, when you have a festival or you have a concert, you start out with those who are less well known and who are up and comers, and then you build to, you know, the people who are headlining it. And there's a certain drama in that. I mean, there's a certain drama in a play that has moves towards a catharsis. But he decided that he wanted to do it kind of in a Dadaistic fashion, just to have it pull the names out of the hat, and then that was it. And it was problematical because a lot of the people who were coming to the festival, they were getting exposed to Mississippi John Hurt and Lightning Hopkins and the clog dancers and the Georgia Sea Island singers, these folk entities that were extraordinary, but they came because of the Bob Dylans and the Joan Baez and the Peter Paul Mace, etc., who were on the bill. So, but they didn't necessarily come for the earlier part because it was an all-day show. So what it effectively did was that since Bob was programmed not at the end of the show, it put him in a place where a lot of the people who he knew, he felt, who would come to see him would be disappointed, and he was really unhappy about that. Now, this was the time when he'd gone electric, you know, which was a kind of breaking an act of faith in the folk community, because it was with the intimacy rather than selling out, so to speak, that you would reaffirm the essence of the kind of culture I was talking about. I mean, remember that we had the Freedom Singers on the stage with the preceding year with Bob Dylan and me and Theodore Bickel and Joan Baez and Pete Paul and Mary and the Freedom Singers, who were the four singers, including Bernice Regan, who formed Sweet Honey in the Rock, and her husband Cordell. And we were singing with our arms crossed, "We Shall Overcome." It's a very famous moment. And we were really politicizing the Newport Folk Festival because we were saying, we're here not just to sing music, but to live its intention. Well, what Bob and the conventional feeling, irrespective of the value of the music, the just going electric, which was hypocritical in a way because the blues artists already were playing rock and roll of that sort, you know, or the electronic music. But for Bob to go electric was considered going rogue and you know, contradicting the basic premise of why we believe that this music could unite us. And again, it's an arbitrary, to me, a misperception, but that was the culture. So when he went on stage, he said, "I'm just going to do my 3 songs and get off." The electric, you know, one of them, the last one was Maggie's Farm. Now, I, at the time, would actually sit at the mix board and mix the festivals. That was one of my gigs. And, you know, when we did a very careful, which they showed in the Scorsese film, and I cautioned, I said, "Don't turn your amps up." And you wonder why. Is it, remember where you have them set. Why did I say that? Because if you turn up the amps on stage, the leakage of that sound goes into the microphones, the vocal microphones, and they didn't have the kind that have great rejection, so that it would pick it up and it would become a mess. The sound would be a mess because the leakage into the microphones was such. Now, with the current technology, you can weed some of that out and make it a lot better. But at the time, you know, it was because they cranked up their amps, and it was Michael Bloomfield, you know, who was brilliant and in the band at that time, so when he sang his first song, it was anything but intimate. It was just a blur of sound because it was so loud, and because instead of having, you couldn't bring up the voice because the voice was picking up the electric guitar and the drums. They didn't have adequate kinds of monitors. Now you've got earphones and you have plastic shields and everything. The audience was in shock and booing, and it was hysteria.
Wow.
And at the end of his songs, I went up to backstage and I brought my guitar, and Bob was shaken by it. And I said, "Here, go on stage." I'd actually asked him before. I counseled him. I said, instead of just singing that, sing a couple of songs acoustically and say, "Look, I'm working with this new idiom and I'd like to share it with you." But, you know, Bob, characteristically, as you know, was very confrontational about his musical changes. I mean, he went to Nashville and did Nashville Skyline, and he did. I mean, he was. If you see the movie, you know, the film, everywhere he went in Europe, he was booed. I mean, it was. And if you hear Robbie Robertson talking about it now, you know, you realize that it was. You know, he had absolute faith, and people were with him. And ultimately, of course, the music was valid, but it didn't conform to something that was like a sacred trust. We're going to sing acoustically, and we're not going to do this. Well, anyhow, this was, you asked about my feeling about Bob Dylan. When he got the Nobel Prize, I was prouder than proud. And I just, you know, I think it was absolutely not only deserved and appropriate, but important, because it is that kind of music, the kind of music that moves us. And what song was sung? What I promise you, it was not "Everybody Must Get Stoned." No. And it wasn't "Lay, Lady, Lay." No. It was "Where Have You Been" by Blue Eyed Son, you know, which comes from, actually, comes from a song called Lord Randall, which was written in England years and years ago. It was the channeling of that spirit, which, you know, when you create, you take this piece of history and you take that piece that moved you and you create your own thing. And that song, Lord Randall, says, "Where have you been all the day? Randall, my son, where have you been all the day? My handsome young one."
That's Dylan's version is a hard rain.
Pardon me?
A hard rain is gonna fall. Is the
That's right. But
yeah.
He says, it's the same thing. "Where have you been all?" He said, "I've been to my sweetheart's mother." "And what did your sweetheart feed you?" "Randall, my son, eels and eels broth, mother." And when you have when you hear "hard rain's going to fall," you hear that it emanates from that, and it takes it into a whole other poetic series of questions you ask yourself, like "Blowing in the Wind." If I were to ask you the question, "Blowing in the Wind," How many roads does it, how many years does that kind of mountain exist before it is washed to the sea? We could have a discussion for an hour on what that means to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say, well, this is what it means to me. And that's what elicits from us the kind of responsibility for our thoughts and the kind of conversation that leads to the engagement of people in a way that feeds the aspirations of what the world might be. And that's why Bob is so important, is because what he wrote and what he shared inspired the world to take responsibility, not be spoon-fed an ideology, whether it's Trumpian or fascism or whatever, but to take responsibility for saying it is up to us in the world. Now, if you show the video, you will see a song that is, in a sense, the legacy of this. And then you will understand that what I'm talking about is not a phenomenon of the past, but a music that is being created now by young people, that not because they want to earn money, not because they want fame, but because their hearts are telling them to write something that is extraordinary. So are you
Yeah,
ready?
we have it.
Yeah, we got it, and it's right
Let's do
here.
that, and then we'll talk.
Okay, let's get to
We'll
the video.
talk. We'll
Okay.
talk. We'll
Yeah.
do lunch.
Yeah, we'll talk. We'll do all this good. Let's remove
Get
that
outta
comment
here.
and let's get to the video. Right,
Hit it.
bam.
Well, I still got a hammer.
No, that's
Peter,
Peter.
that was. Let me say something first. Watching that right out the gate, I was starting to get tears in my eyes watching this. It's heavy. It's making me. It makes you think as a world. It's even when you were doing your thing, and we were going through different eras and times. It just seems like watching that. It's like the world is. It's just
devastating.
when's it going to get better? That's
Devastating.
you
No,
know.
the question is not when, because that's leaving it up to somebody. What are you going to do? What am I going to do in terms of this awareness? And that's why this music, this is the legacy of Hard Rain's Gonna Fall. This is the legacy of that spirit that this music produced. This is the same spirit translated. And these kids who were singing it, high school kids, the blonde was is just, she was a sophomore at the time. She co-wrote this with 35 kids. And then there's another young woman there who is a trans, and she's got her cause, and you'll see that. And then there's another who is, for the third year in a row, she's now a junior and the president of her class. And these are students who wrote from this agony of pain, and through the creative process, it's the real deal. This was their healing, or part of their healing. And they are activists. And what they are saying, and that's why, we want to sit there and watch people be humiliated on television, and because it's a show that makes fun of everybody. Is that what you want? That's like watching the lions eating the Christians. That is the debasement of humanity. Today, when you watch this, if you take, is this what you want in your lives? Not to cry, but to care. Not to, if we are desensitized to each other, now music, in this case, can communicate that. And music now with, of course, videos. Now, the work that I was doing with the national election and the videos that you will see if you click on the links or, copy and paste them, you will see how this figured into this last election, particularly in the general in Pennsylvania and in the Georgia primaries. You'll see that. because there's a whole. Thank you, Ira. So the discussion is not so much when is it going to end. With all due respect, it's a legitimate question. But if you're thinking as a person, I have a role in this, like these kids have. Like if you say, who are the women in the who emerged, right after Trump was elected with the Pussy March, the Pussy Hat March. They're not saying when is it going to end. They're saying we're not going to allow this to continue without raising our voices. And that's what happened this past summer with Black Lives Matter when George Floyd was killed. They didn't say when is it going to end. They said now. We are coming together and we are going to demonstrate in every city in the United States, despite COVID. I mean, that's America.
Peter, we're all the parents of young children, and this is our fucking biggest nightmare on the planet. I think I would even commit suicide if it happened to me.
I mean, Peter, it's like we have.
In fact, one of my friends that I knew from Newtown, because I did a concert for Newtown at Sandy Hook, did commit suicide. 3 of their classmates committed suicide because it was intolerable, the pain, the seeing of the bestial. If you see something that is impossible, if you were to see a massacre take place, if you are to live in a concentration camp, and then you come out, and then you're Bruno Bettelheim, 40 years later, you might take your life because your soul cannot accommodate the horror of this. And you, as parents of young children, and I, as now, so I'm part of a gun violence prevention nationwide effort. I have a video that I can send to you where it kind of traces a lot of the pieces of the anti-gun violence effort, and you'll see this video played on it. And if you want, you can see it, and then we can have a discussion about it. And instead of being just observers, you can become the amplifiers of the effort itself. And in doing so, you will be a part of this tradition that we inherited, we being Bob Dylan, from Woody Guthrie, with whom, Bob Dylan went to the hospital, and he was, because, and he was with him in the year before he died, and we inherited from the Weavers and Pete Seeger. Then you will be part of it. You'll be carrying it on, not as observers, but as participants.
Well, I'd like to thank you, Peter, for carrying on your activism for 6 decades instead of becoming like a Reaganite and buying a Beamer and just forgetting about all that idealism. You stuck with it. You even got more active in politics. And for an 82-year-old to be
I may be 82 years old chronologically, but as Bob Dylan said, he said, I was so much older then, I'm younger than that
now.
The trick is for you, your parents. If you want to be engaged, if you want to have that sense of real heart and soul in life that gives you this kind of ongoing sense of purpose and participation and energy. So when you're my age, you won't feel like you're over the hill at all. You're just cranking along as long as the body will go. Be a part of the voices that carry us forward, because you are in a position to do so. So if you like, I'd like to propose that I send you that video, that we show it on a program. It's actually, we'll have to edit it down because it's an hour and a half. And then we have a discussion about it. And you as parents, as well as your role as broadcasters and journalists and, part of the media world, can say, look, We're moving the world with this. There are people watching this that care about this. We've moved this forward. It's like voting in another way.
Well, we're certainly going to do that. We'll have you back and do that. But I want to ask you something too. I have a stupid question that you're going to hate, and I know you're going to hate it.
The answer is it's not.
No, and I know the answer. And I know the answer is that it's not. But
Peter, you're great.
But I'm going to ask you. Can't you see how it seems like it is? Can't you see how it seems like it's about pot? It blows my mind that it's not about pot.
Listen, I'm going to show you. I used to do this on stage. Why the Star Spangled Banner is about grass. Okay? Oh, say can you see, by the dawn's early light, which is the time at which, see. Oh, say can you see. C refers to cocaine, as it was alleged to refer to cocaine in Puff the Magic Dragon Lives by the Sea. Right? They said that was the analysis. Puff the Magic Dragon Lives by the Sea. C refers to cocaine. Oh, say can you see. C refers to cocaine. By the dawn's early light, the time at which junkies are known to shoot up. Mm-hmm. What so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, what we reaffirmed the last time we entered the never-nevers of the wicked, last time we got high, baby. The twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes referring to prison uniforms and the possibility of incarceration, and bright stars referring to the shields worn by the narcotics squad through the perilous fight, the fight to get it across the border in Mexico. And the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare just gave proof to the night that Francis Scott Key was not only a lush, he was a junkie. Now,
I told you would hate that question.
Now, this song, I could take just about any song and analyze it in this way.
I love it.
I said, Puff the Magic Dragon is not about grass. It's neither here nor there. But at Cornell, when I was in my senior year, when I wrote this with Lenny Lipton, we didn't have any grass. It hadn't come to the East Coast. It was not there in 1959, but it hadn't come to the East Coast. So how could I have done that? And the worst thing we did was go on a panty raid.
Well, okay, so that's not about pot. We know it's not about pot. It's okay, because at least we have the Beatles' Got to Get You Into My Life, which Paul admitted 10 years ago was all about pot.
And
we have that.
Hey, Mr. Tambourine Man was unequivocally, Bob Dylan's song was about a trip. There are songs that were written, frankly, about that. It was getting high in those days. After I graduated, because then when I went to Greenwich Village, it was there, and at that point, I could have written Puff the Magic Dragon about grass, any number of times. But the point is that was kind of an act in the beginning of solidarity with the idea that we were moving away from an outmoded consciousness that had at the core of its value system very much what we have returned to now, which is a kind of superficiality and a negativity and an absence of compassion and heart and caring as the guiding star.
Yep.
Now, Miranda,
what can you say? It's so true.
I want to talk to Miranda again. Because, for one thing, Miranda's got this, heart on her sleeve, and she's got a really big soul. Miranda, how do you know these guys?
Oh, Peter, you just opened up a can of worms right here. Miranda, tell them.
How did you get mixed up with this?
How did I get mixed up with this? First of all, I would like to thank you for making me laugh and cry within an hour. That is not something I get to experience very often.
Yeah.
And I feel it deeply, and I appreciate it. Because sometimes it's hard to feel things these days. So thank you. I know Stefan's wife. That's how I got to know Stefan. Stefan's wife was a friend of mine. She visited our office. My husband's a physician, and she used to bring me sushi on my birthday, which is tomorrow, by the way. So happy birthday to me, and thank you for being
Happy
here.
birthday to
Um,
you.
so Amber's a sweet, sweet lady. And anyway, because Amber knew me and my husband, physician husband, she said, "Look, my husband's doing this show, and we'd like to have a doctor on. Can Gary come on?" So my husband
Right.
started coming on, and the first time he did, Corey called him names, and I'm not supposed to talk about
I
that.
thought he was an anti-vaxxer.
He's not.
No.
And so he called him names, and
Yeah.
that was fun. And then a couple months later, Stefan said, "Hey, I'm doing a local human interest story, and you live in the area where this
Yeah.
happened. Could you come on and sit in and be, an empathetic human?" So that was how I began, and they kept me.
Right. Now let me ask you something. Can we try something? I'll learn everything rather than asking you the question. I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, and then you say, we all say together 4, 5, 6. In 1, 2, 3, 4.
4, 5,
5, 6.
6.
Okay, once again, time. 1, 2, 3, 4,
4,
5.
5.
Okay.
6.
Okay, so we have not eliminated the lag time.
No,
And,
clearly
because
not.
they do have a technology now where there's simultaneity, but it's very complex and it's got its limitations. But I was wondering, because I was interested to know that you are using a different technology than Zoom, correct?
Correct. It's called StreamYard, which I'm able with this. We're able to bring up the banners, add the videos, do the pictures, the overlays, which you could do like with the over the Beatles, over the documentary. You Are What You Eat, which is
Right.
very, very rare. You can't. That's a very rare one to find, Corey. I was telling Corey about it, and then we have you on stage over here playing a great photo. So these are the fun things we could do. And we could do
So
an intro.
it's more flexible. Yeah.
It's a little more flexible. We could add the video in like we just did instead of sharing the screen.
Okay. Well, now listen. I have work to do.
You got it.
Yeah, but let's get together again, Miranda.
Yes.
I want to make sure you're on the Zoom too, because when you get just 3 guys, guess what happens?
Yes.
I've seen it.
You don't have the female force.
Yeah. Well, if we remove Corey, we almost have a Peter Paul, a new version of Peter Paul and Mary right here. We could have a band. That's right.
Some spectacles. Right?
That's it. We have the band. But Peter, I want to thank you for coming on the show today and spending time with us and touching our hearts. You definitely moved us, and you, not us and the audience out there, myself too. You really, I almost lost it with tears. And you're a lovely man, and I learned a lot. And big mazel to you. Mwah. Mazel to you. And I can't wait for us to have another conversation again.
All right, Corey, you be very careful now, because with your sharp tongue, you're calling people anti-vaxxers. You got to be careful.
You got to be careful, Corey. All right, Peter, I'll let you out of the studio. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Till the next time, my friend.
Okay.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Peter.
All
I
right.
did well.
Oh.
That was
Man,
great.
that was a heavy one. He's a lovely guy.
That was
And
so good.
I almost, I was watching the video, and at first I something got over me. I was thinking about my daughter. I was thinking about the world, and I, looking at the screen, I almost cried. I was about to cry.
Like
And
I
it
said,
takes a lot.
I grew up with 2 of the parents. The parents of Meadow Pollitt, the main person who emerged as the victim, and I knew them both actually before they
Beautiful show
started
today.
dating.
Yeah, this was a beautiful show today.
That's such a tragedy. It still reverberates. It will always reverberate. It's as big as 9/11. Even though the body count isn't the same. That was so wrong.
Look at the comments out here. Everybody's talking. Anybody that was watching today, hey, we had 60 something, maybe 70. It was a small crowd, but you know what? To me, this was a big one. There's nothing else like this. He touched our hearts. Everybody watching today, everybody, please share this out. There's such a heavier message than just talking about nonsense today. Rob Grady, thank you for that. Wonderful show. Hug your loved ones,
Exactly.
everyone. Exactly. Thank you, Rob.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you.
he did a great job of embodying. I mean, we're all humans. We're wandering around skin and bones, but we have, we have this ability to have purpose, and that
Thank you.
man has got his purpose like streamlined. He knows what he's doing with
Thank you,
his life,
Ken.
and it's great. It's God bless him for keeping on and with good cause, and his heart is so in the right place. And I'm really glad that you guys have this so that you can share it. What a great thing.
It
for
is a
us to get
great
to share
thing.
this.
It's a great thing, and everybody out there that support the show. Thanks for making the show happen. The show's not easy to make. Some days it's hard to get up and do it, and some days you just want to do it. I'm a human, but having guys like him on the show after the show is done, that's when I kick back. I go, man, that was a great show, and you got to keep going, Stefan, with your team, with your audience. And you know what? It's going to keep going. Thank you guys, everybody. You guys, group hug to everybody out there in this virtual world, and we got a great show. Love you guys out there on YouTube.
I feel like every time we have somebody like from pop culture on, I feel like we get legitimized. I feel like, we get recognized by the people that we look up to, and they think that we're doing something good. And I that was really special for me.
It was special for me too. I didn't think the show was going to go off like it did. I can't wait to have him back. Got to book him back again. Thank you. He's a lovely guy, lovely soul, and that was a heavy video. I want everybody to be good to each other. You know what? We do love you. As much as craziness goes on here, we did a private show last night. It was a lot of fun and a lot of nonsense, but it was a serious subject too. On that note, everybody, we'll be here tomorrow, 10 a.m. And then Mark Foreigner Thursday. 3 p.m. I'm doing the private Patreon with him. And then I'll edit it out and release it. My co-host, special co-host who played with him, is going to help me out with that one. But this one, man, was top notch. I don't even know what to say. Thank you, Corey. Thank you, Miranda.
Good job, Corey.
YouTube people, thank you guys. Let's get out of here. Let's hit that outro. We'll see you tomorrow.
Bye.
It's coffee talk with ADIKA. Nothing rhymes with that but chicken tikka. We name drop here. We're Stefan and all his friends.
And you know what? You could hit the thumbs up. It's well worth it today. Let's leave with the video I was going to try to play before with Peter over here, right here.
I still got a hammer, and I still got a bell, and I still got a song to sing all over this land. It's the hammer of justice, still the bell of freedom, the song about love between my brothers and my sisters, all over this land, as I make this stand, this step forward, my own personal way. I join you. We will stand together and step together. And we will invoke our own history and remember what we believe in and what is decent and good about each other and about us. And by filling this space with that kind of goodness, we will push away all the attention and noise to animosity. And therein is our power. And we still got a hammer, and we still got a bell. And I still got a song to sing all over this land. Together, my friends, we are together.